Hi, I'm Damien Cook from the Wetland Revival Trust.
And we've just completed a project called Improving Drought Resilience in the Lower Loddon River Landscape, which was a Commonwealth-funded project from the Future Drought Fund. The idea of this project was to increase drought resilience on farms by restoring wetlands and getting farmers to change their practices to improve the natural capital of the land so that the land was more resilient to drought.
Yeah, we're absolutely stoked about this project. We couldn't get any happier. The noise from the happy frogs and the birds and everything is just, yeah, it's just pure joy.
Over 80% of our shallow wetlands are on private land, so farmers hold a huge amount of the wetlands, and the health of those wetlands is dependent on land management practices. Unfortunately, of the wetlands on private land that have been monitored, about 61% of them are in a poor to very poor conditions.
Past poor management practices, things like over-clearing of the land, draining of wetlands, poor management of irrigation and set stock grazing have really damaged the natural capital of the land and actually made it less resilient to drought.
So we restored 11 wetlands on 7 different farms. Some of the farmers' objectives for these projects were to improve their drought resilience, to have feed for their stock during dry times, to create a local moisture-rich environment which helps cool and maintain a more stable environment for their stock. One of the projects we worked on was with Karen and Bradley Hoare and their property Yando. Before this family took over this farm, it had been pretty heavily overgrazed, so the previous owners had damaged the natural capital of the land.
Once you're restoring the environment like this, it has huge flow-on effects to everything. It takes the edge off all the extremes like droughts or your really hot days and things, because it's lowering the temperature. And on those really hot days, the bird life along the edges and in the trees close to this was just colossal. Once you've got a water body, it's increasing the amount of moisture that is in the air, and that makes your dew points drop. The plants can actually absorb some of that moisture, and they don't dry out as quick.
This property is being run by the farm. Historically, it's been just an irrigation farm, and now we are having this opportunity where we realise there is parts of this farm that are a bit more natural and that aren't irrigatable. So we were wanting to put more of the environmental aspects back into the farm. The long term is actually having a bit more of a full circle environment here, and hopefully the agriculture can take advantage of that.
Joe and Greg's place is actually quite close to the river on the floodplain. It basically only filled very infrequently.
It would be flooded every year, up to 3 to 6 months it would have been wet, which would be amazing carbon processing, amazing interaction with the groundwater, amazing humidity creating a local climate, important for insects, birds, the whole gamut of things. But now this area, because it's disconnected from the river, it floods 1 in 10 years or 1 in 20 years. Imagine me saying, don't you drink a glass of water for 10 days rather than a glass every day, or 1 in 100 days. It's impossible. So you're actually losing things out of the landscape the further you go away from the river systems and the further out onto the floodplain. So re-wetting these environments is critical in bringing back healthy ecosystems. And this project, the Future Drought Fund, is about showing how that's really valuable and how it can be done with farmers being supported with information and resources that will help the whole ecosystem and the whole of community down in the future.
As part of the project, we actually reconnected the wetland to a water source so we could deliver environmental water into the wetland. We also collected seeds of native wetland plants and grew about 40 different species of native wetland plants and planted them back into that area when we did the environmental watering. And we worked with the local traditional owner community, Brappa and Wemba communities, to do the planting and do the seed collection.
I just like being out on country, I guess. Re-vegging. Yeah, I get a sense of gratitude out of it. Just seeing all the brogues and different wildlife and native wildlife and come back. And I guess what we've put in the ground, flourish, so it's good.
And again, the objective at that wetland was to increase the drought resilience, to create a damper environment which is cool and shady for the stock that are in the next door paddock. They can sort of access some of that shade and moisture by being nearby. And also, again, to increase the biodiversity values of the farm.
It's a refuge not only for animals and the plants and our stock, but it's also a refuge for people too, because that, especially long-standing droughts, it gets pretty tough. So it's really nice to have something like that to come to.
We came into this site almost a year ago. We took some baseline studies of how a degraded wetland behaves, and then we brought water in artificially, and we added plants, and we let the environment recover, and we monitored throughout. After re-wetting, everything is green. Look around, it's lush. The environment has changed completely, and this was just after 6 months from the intervention. So it clearly shows that these environments can recover quite quickly. They are adapted to do so.
So by these restorative practices, we're actually introducing drought resilience by rehydrating the landscape, by having healthier soils, and actually by helping to sequester more carbon in the environment.
So we know that carbon stocks and water holding capacity are actually linked, and so when we're putting back in water into the wetlands, they usually provide really good resistance to droughts. We're hypothesizing that when they store a lot of carbon in the soils, they can actually hold more water and provide it during the droughts.
Carbon dioxide emissions decreased by 40% in the restored wetlands, and soil organic carbon stocks actually increased by 12% over the fairly short time that we had to monitor, because we had to get the whole project done in 12 months. They considered the project a complete success in terms of showing that we were increasing carbon sequestration and increasing the soil moisture holding capacity and therefore the drought resilience of the farms.
It also creates a drought refuge for threatened species. So, for example, we've already got growling grass frogs, which are a nationally threatened species, calling in this wetland. So, as well as increasing the drought resilience of the farm, we're creating a biodiversity hotspot and a drought refuge for threatened native fauna.